On the workbench here, I've got the various structural components of the MR-1 milling machine. These components in particular are special in that they've got machined surfaces on them that have to mate together with one another. So what I'm going to describe in this video is the process of inspecting those machined surfaces and potentially checking to see if there's any raised metal or dents or burrs on those surfaces that would prevent intimate contact from occurring between two mating components. So I'm going to go through the various parts of the surfaces that we're going to be looking at, and then also go over some of the techniques that we can use to do this. So it goes without saying that our goal when we ship machines is to have every part completely perfect, no burrs, no raised edges, no dents on these faces at all. But the fact is that these are going into a crate, they're being handled, there's shipping considerations to be made. So with that being said, we do our best, but it is possible that you could have one of these parts come, it might have a little dent or a little burr that we weren't able to catch. And now is the perfect opportunity to go ahead and address that before you assemble your machine. So in the front here, I've got the this is the front and rear Y-axis rail mounts. The surfaces that are important here are these machined faces. These are the faces that the Y-axis rails mount to. And we just want to make sure that I'm going to feel with my fingers and feel if there's any raised metal. So it doesn't feel like there's any on either of these. The chamfers are in good shape for these holes. I don't feel any raised metal at all. But if there was a little burr or a little dent, I want to be able to get rid of that before I bolt the Y-axis rails on. So the best tool for this, not everybody has this, but a good flat stone. These are ground flat. Usually they come with different grits. One is a fine and one is a coarse. It's very easy. If you feel a little dent or a burr, you just basically set it on there and you run it in a figure-8 pattern. And it'll take any high spot off. It will also take a little bit of the black oxide coating off. That's not important. That's not going to hurt anything. But yeah, it's just if you, as a precaution, you can go ahead and stone all of those surfaces. It's not going to hurt anything at all. Stones are really good. They only take out the high spot. They don't take off any of the low spots. So if you have raised metal, it'll take that off, but it's not going to appreciably affect the surface in any way beyond that. If you don't have a stone, the second best tool to use would just be a flat file with like fine pitch on the teeth. Basically, it's the same kind of scenario. You just kind of back and forth on the surface, and any high spots it'll get taken off. If you don't have stones or files, the third best option, and I don't have it here, would be if you have something like a 1-2-3 block. You could wrap it in sandpaper and just run over the top of those surfaces. That works all right as well. So that's the rail mounts. The next parts I have on here are the Y-axis carriages. The surfaces that are important here would be this flat face. That's where the X-axis gantry mounts. You want to run your hand over the top, make sure you don't feel any raised metal there. Your hand's really, really good. It's very sensitive. You can feel raised metal very well with just light finger pressure. And then on the back side here is where the Y-axis linear bearings mount to. Just want to feel around the holes and on the edges, make sure there's no raised metal there. We have the X-axis gantry. The critical thing here, and you'll actually notice that we actually stone these in-house. So we stone the Y-axis, the mounting surfaces for the X-axis linear bearings on the top surface. And then if I flip this over, it's pretty heavy. We stone the lower linear rail mounting surface, as well as the mounting surfaces where the gantry mounts onto the Y-axis carriage castings. So you shouldn't have to do really anything here, but still check it, because if it got dented or something during shipping, you'd want to be able to address that here. Also, it's worth mentioning for later use, you're going to notice an inspection sticker on the bottom of the gantry. What this is it's a measurement of the precision of the reference edge for the upper and lower linear rails. It basically is telling you what the error is and the position of these linear rail reference edges. That comes into play later on when we're going to shim the x-axis carriage to get perfect z-axis alignment. So in this case, you know, the error here is on one end, it's a 0 error. In the middle, it's about 1,000th error. And on the other end, it's a 0 error. So that's the level of accuracy that these parts are made to. And that's why it's so important to make sure we remove any high spots, because MR-1 is a very, very precision machine as long as the assembly is done correctly and you don't have any of this raised metal in these critical joints. The next part on here is both y-axis rails. So similar to the gantry, we just want to make sure there's no raised metals here, or raised metal here on the slot that the linear rail mounts to. And then if I flip this over, this surface here and here is where the y-axis rail mounts to the front and rear y-axis rail mounts. Then you have the x-axis lower bearing carriage mount. The surfaces that are important here are this face, just make sure there's no raised metal there, and then this surface here. This is the surface that the lower x-axis bearings mount to. And then lastly, we have the surfaces on the x-axis carriage. So you want to be careful with maneuvering this because it's very heavy. This is about 80 pounds. So I'm going to just flip it on its side here carefully. And the surfaces that we care about are this face right here, this face right here, and then this face right here. Want to make sure there's no raised metal there. Once you do that, that's all the critical joints in the machine. There's one other very important step, is that when you go to assemble this, right before you bolt these, make these critical joints, you're going to want to use, preferably acetone or mineral spirits, or maybe a little bit of soap and water, and clean these surfaces, because a little bit of dust, a little bit of debris in that joint, it will affect the accuracy of the machine. Very important to, when we're assembling this, we maintain good cleanliness, and that's going to just ensure a better end product. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and thanks for watching.